So after some seat time, you're gonna notice that you want to go faster. First way to do that is to upgrade tires. I will start by saying that if you're using all season tires of any type, you're gonna want to switch over to summer, like soft compound. The amount of instant grip that you get is ridiculous. For me, that was about a 3-second difference in time on my runs. If you think about it, it makes sense because tires is what connects the car to the road. So when I bought this car, it already came with Kosei wheels, but it was the same factory size. I believe it was 17 by 8, running the same tire width of 235. So on previous cars, I was running Continental DWS. That's meant for all seasons, but it definitely does not have as much lateral grip as a dedicated summer tire. In the last video, I know I made a comment saying that seat time is the most important, and I still stand by that. Even if you upgrade your tires, if you're competing against people who just drive better, they could be on worse setups than you and still have a better time. Again, Autocross exposes any weaknesses in driving skills, and they add up at every corner. However, you'll get to a point where driving skill being equal, you need the best competitive advantage. Even in street category, you get ready to start running 18-inch wheels. Tires, I don't know if there's a limit, but you want to run the widest tire possible that's legal in the class. Fortunately, I don't want to give any wrong information. You're gonna have to look that up. But if you could run 255s, the sooner the better. That's the very common tried and true tire size for the Evo doing motorsports. And I'll highlight again, once you get to prepared, there's no limit on the tires or the wheel sizes. So if you bought a used Evo that just has 600 horsepower with stock wheels, you're going to be severely outclassed. I'll make one more point. If you have a show car with carbon fiber hoods and trunks, you're automatically bumped in an SM. And these cars are trailer queens. I've seen people put over 315 or so tread width tires on these, and to be honest, most of the show cars I've seen don't have that kind of work put into it in terms of suspension. So just some stuff to keep in mind. A set of wheels and 4 tires is in the thousands, so I understand why there's some reservation for a lot of people not to upgrade until later. But looking back, I wish I would have done it a lot sooner, especially the tire width. If you're looking to become more competitive, you definitely need to run a wider wheel and wider rubber. My progression was 235. Started out with Direzza Star Specs Z2. That was the best tire at the time, around 2014. Then I upgraded to 235's RE71R on the same Kosei wheels. And then finally, within the last 2 years or so, I finally bit the bullet and bought these Enkei wheels. These are 18 by 9.5. And I'm currently running the Bridgestone RE71R 265 width. A very common tire size that you see on track Evos is 255, especially when it comes to high-speed track. That's a proven setup that's known through Evo M forums. However, if we're talking about autocross and pure lateral grip, I wanted to go a little bit wider, so that's why I picked the 265. And it was just wide enough without having to go even wider to 275 or 285 slicks. Right now I'm running a staggered offset. In the back it's plus 40. In the front it's plus 27. Main benefit is a wider front track for better turn-in and to eliminate some of the inherent understeer on these cars. Of course, the drawback is that you can no longer rotate the tires. A very common question people have when upgrading wheels and tires is the width and the diameter of the wheel. Here I have an 18, but a lot of people opt to stick with the 17 and just go with a wider wheel, which is fine. Sometimes there's a better fitment. The 18s weigh more, they have more rotating mass, but in return you can run much wider rubber and the possibility of slicks. In terms of looks, there could be differences. For this wheel, the 18 has a convex look to it, which a lot of people prefer, whereas the 17 sticks out in a convex pattern. The price of consumables. The 18-inch tires cost a lot more, so if you're going through those a lot, that's something to consider. With wheel and tire fitment, there's a lot of variables. Every car is a little different. Unfortunately, I can't go over every single setup in this video. The Evo M Forum has every single combination of wheel and tire I could think of. I forgot to mention this earlier, but there are some people that fit the 255 wide tires on the factory 7x8 wheel. It is doable. On the rear, I had to roll the fenders, but I didn't have to relocate that bumper bolt. On the stock suspension with lowering springs, it will rub. Once I installed coilovers, the rub went away. So I had a bit more fitment issues on the front. Even before I upgraded to a wider wheel and tire, the fender liners were all chewed up already, especially the one on the driver's side. I just have a zip tied in right now to keep it from flopping around. I would remove it, but this car already has a lot of corrosion on there, so I don't want to make it worse. In the back here, I just used a heat gun to heat up the liner, push it in with a rubber mallet, just to get a little bit more clearance. Again, I had issues with the tire rubbing on the fender. I believe I used the CDR camber caster plates with the stock suspension on lowering springs, but again, that didn't stop the rubbing. It wasn't until that I went to coilovers that the problem went away. All four wheels require hub centering rings, but in the front, you'll also need a spacer. Originally I had a 12mm to clear the Brembos. However, I upgraded my calipers to the Evo X, and for whatever reason, just the way it sits, you could use a smaller spacer and it will clear just fine. Right now I'm running a 5mm spacer. If you have the stock Evo 9 caliper, you're gonna have to use at least a 10 to 12. I also opted for the extended studs, the ARP extended studs. Reason being is that I prefer the spacers that simply slide on. They have another type that has the lugs built into it, and then you would bolt this to the existing lugs. But instead of having 5 potential points of failure, you now have 10. So I prefer to go with the slip-on instead, and by doing that I had to get the ARP extended studs. These weren't hard to put on at all. I think that anyone that's running a wide spacer should do that. At the same time, I would try to get wheels that fit in the first place. Unfortunately, some wheels just don't, even with the offset. If you're running a really wide spacer, you're gonna have an issue at full lock where the wheel sticks out more and it's gonna rub the size of the wheel well here and the fenders. So I prefer to have as small a spacer as possible. In terms of alignment, on the factory suspension, I was running -2 on the front with that eccentric bolt turned toward the outside, and then -1 in the back. A common starting point is just to use half the camber in the back compared to the front. So right now I currently have -3 in the front and -1.5 in the back. So to quickly recap this video, if money is tight, I would at the very minimum run summer tires in the factory size, the 235, and if money allows, I would go to at least a 255. That seems to be the most favorable tire size for most Evos that are doing motorsports. That setup is known to work with high-speed track and autocross. And if money is not an issue and you don't mind having a second set, ideally you would have the 285 slicks. You may or may not have to do more work to get it to fit. Some people say that the composition of the tire allows better fitment, but I have not had a chance to test that out. If anyone has any additional comments or feedback that could help others, leave it down below. This is a very important part of the setup, so there might have been something I missed.